All right, everybody. This is the final assignment for this particular assignment for the opening of our World War II unit. So at this point, you should have all the assignments done. Guys, for this, there really is nothing that you really need to copy down or anything. Just kind of a recap of kind of what you guys should have just did in your workbooks with American neutrality, some of the neutrality acts and isolationist acts that were passed by U.S. You shouldn't have to copy really anything down for this lecture. So just kind of a recap. You should basically have the whole front page of your guided notes filled out, and you should also have, let's see here. At this point, you should have up until Pearl Harbor notes in the back of the first page filled out in your guided notes. I am going to check that as a part of this assignment. So be ready on Tuesday. Mr. Carmel and myself will walk around and make sure this is done. It should be done if you're going through it in order, how I have it on the Google Slides. Um, you should also have the workbook also done as well. All right, so just a little timeline of events. Kind of just recapping a little bit. By March of 36, Hitler sends troops to the Rhineland. Nothing is done. March of 1938, Hitler moves troops into Austria and made it a part of Germany. Again, League of Nations does nothing. They threatened to invade Sudetenland, which is the western part of Czechoslovakia, and they actually make a deal where they will give that land to Hitler. So again, appeasement. You're seeing that common theme. March 15th, 1939, they're going to invade Czechoslovakia. They're going to break their promise. So Hitler is not satisfied with just the Sudetenland. So he's to break his promise, and again, the League of Nations and the Allies do nothing. Um, Morning. On August 23rd, probably a brilliant move in terms of Hitler's part. August 23rd, 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union agreed to not attack each other. This is called the Non-Aggression Pact. Again, this should be familiar from Global. They agreed to not attack each other for now. We'll get to that later on. But they call that the Non-Aggression Pact. Basically, they both agree, Stalin and Hitler make a deal to invade Poland and split up Poland. Again, think back to my last lecture. Why? After World War I, Poland was created. It was land from the Soviet Union. It was land from Germany that was taken from them and given their independence. Um, so Hitler and Stalin want that land back because they both claim that there's German people and Soviet citizens that live there, and they're going to go in and try to basically free their people, make it a part, and annex the land again. All right, so kind of some things that you guys should have been reading about in your workbook pages. You know, stemming back from the end of World War One, the United States maintained a policy of isolation, avoid war at all costs. That's the reason why they did not. That's why they did not join the League of Nations. So even after the League of Nations, and even though they refused to join that, there were still steps that the U.S. took after that to ensure that they maintained a peaceful presence. So, for instance, 1921, they had the Washington Peace Conference where they brought countries from around the world, and the whole point of it was to promote peace and to reduce their militaries, including the United States. Whereas you think how different from that was from before World War One, where they were increasing militaries. Now they're going to start decreasing it. The Kellogg-Briand Pact. 62 nations, including the U.S., agreed to outlaw going to war. This was in 1928. So this is really before some of the main warning signs of World War II. And then here's the big thing, what you guys really need to know, and hopefully you guys read this you should have been reading about this in your workbooks, and you guys should have copied this down in the back of you guys' notes. This is very important, guys. Something that you need to know for your state test. So U.S. Congress specifically took steps to, again, look at the dates here. 1935, 1939. This is when World War II basically started brewing. This is when Hitler basically had full control of Germany. Hitler started rebuilding his military, started doing several things, and basically, guys, U.S. and Congress, we knew that war was starting to brew. So U.S. Congress passed a series of acts called the Neutrality Acts. It's a series of acts by the United States Congress in the 1930s that were meant to keep the U.S. out of war in Europe. So there was 35, there was 37, 39, so that's why there's a series of acts called Neutrality Acts. Now, in 35 and 37, a part of these Neutrality Acts, let's see here. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 Um, there was a stipulation in these neutrality acts that said the U.S. cannot sell weapons or loans to warring countries. So any country that's physically at war, no weapons can be sold. Also, no U.S. personnel can be on foreign ships. Think about why Congress did that. Think back to World War One, the Lusitania. There was Americans on British liners and British ships. There were Germany in World War One accused the United States of, although we were neutral, why was U.S. personnel on these ships? They accused us of putting weapons and military personnel on these ships. So we passed. We learned our lesson, and we're like, okay, well, we're not going to do that again. No U.S. military in any foreign vessel, and no weapons could be sold to a country at war. So those were a part of the neutrality acts. Now, in 1939, Germany is going to invade Poland. This is going to start World War II. So this is when America takes the next step. So this is, again, these two things are very important. You need to know them, star them, highlight them, whatever you got to do. We're going to be reviewing these from now until the state test. So there's something called the cash carry program. So once war broke out, we're like, okay, well, depression, how can we benefit ourselves? So we kind of amend one of our Neutrality Act laws, basically. Countries can purchase weapons and products from the United States as long as they transport it on their own ships. Say why. Um, Guys, Europe was a war zone. Um, Germany had U-boats, submarines, there was naval war going on, and we didn't want U.S. ships being put in harm's way where U.S. ships were going to get attacked and bring us into a war. So we're like, okay, well, if we can get ourselves out of the Great Depression and get our factories going, and countries want to buy a weapon from us, fine, but they have to come and transport it on their ships. And guys, realistically, this was basically for Great Britain and for the Allies. So although we were neutral, we were really doing this with really one side of the war. So they call it the cash carry. You carry it on your own ships, you pay cash for it. Hence, cash carry. And then finally, by 1941, guys, Great Britain was in some financial problems. Think about stemming back from World War One, the rebuild, and there was debt from World War One, and then now you're fighting a war for now you're fighting a new war for 2 years. So Winston Churchill will meet with FDR, basically begging and pleading, like, we cannot fight this war alone. You guys see this map here. Here's Great Britain, the Battle of Great Britain, which you learned that last year in Global. It's really Great Britain versus Germany. They're basically left by themselves to fend for themselves. They need some help. So this will be a law passed by the United States that will allow us to send weapons to Great Britain to help them out. Now, again, is this really being neutral? No, we're not doing this to both sides. We're helping out our closest ally in Great Britain. So they call it Lend-Lease. They lease it, we lend it to them. They could pay, great. If they can't, oh well. It's fine, but kind of doing our part. All right. So anyway, that is it. And you don't need to copy any of this stuff down, but these are some things you guys should have had in your workbook and things that you should have in that isolationist section on the back of the page of your guided notes.